So, Patrick, welcome to the Immigrant podcast tip. It's interesting. Getting a shot at the doctor's office may soon become less painful in the not so distant future. Patrick Anquetil is the CEO of Portal Instruments, has developed a new needless-free injection system from technology created at Ian Hunter's lab at MIT. The system allows patients to self-inject themselves with a high-pressure stream of medication that is the size of a strand of hair through the skin in less than half a second. Patrick, tell us more.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting us, and and thank you for the introduction as well. Yeah, we're developing a device that really will help patients kind of ease up in taking their medicines if they are injectables. Everyone hates needles. I think it's universally accepted, and we have a device that just does just the same, but without needles, and is just as good, if not better.
If this claim is true, how does this technology work?
So what you do, first of all, I have a device here. Actually, I can show it to you. You pressurize the device. So you pressurize the drug in a cartridge that looks like this. The cartridge you see looks like a syringe, but if you open it up, there's no needle. It's actually completely needle free. So what you do, you pressurize the contents of the cartridge, and at the end of that cartridge is a very small orifice. You actually don't see it. It's about where my finger is. And that orifice is about a quarter of the size of a typical needle and syringe. And so as you pressurize the content, you have a very fine stream of jet that comes out. And that jet travels so fast that it actually pierces the skin and does the full injection in under half a second. And it doesn't matter what the drug is. If the drug is a bit more viscous and so on, it will still do the same injection. We've done multiple clinical studies. We've published on it. It's about half the sensation of what you have with a needle and syringe, and we get preferences about 70% to 80% of people injected with this technology. So it's pretty amazing actually, and so we're working on very hard to bring it to patients such that they can actually in turn use it and have a difference in their life.
I have to ask you, do you watch movies?
Yes, of course. I love movies.
Okay, so I'm a fan of Star Trek movies, and so as you're speaking, I'm thinking of the high post-spray medical device that is in the Star Trek movies. It's similar to what they call injector. Are we talking in the same realms?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so it's a great analogy actually. What was amazing with Star Trek is that they actually used physicists in developing the stories, really to make sure that as the creators were quite creative and inventing new worlds and so on, they really also wanted to make sure that not too many laws of physics were basically being violated. And so as such, what really made Star Trek kind of unique is that aspect. And you're right. In fact, there were two medical devices in Star Trek. There was, first of all, a tricorder that could actually diagnose any ailment. And then, of course, the hypospray, as you described it, that could inject any medicines and very, very fast. So we certainly took inspiration from that and now actually built a device that works and can do such things.
That's just fantastic. So I'm glad you went there because I'm going to follow you, right? So as an immigrant, I'm assuming you came to America in the early 2000s?
That's correct, yes.
Did you migrate?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes, I was. So for me, it was actually very classic. I was a master's student in Europe. I had completed a master's degree in mechanical engineering. During that time, I really discovered how I enjoyed research. I enjoyed the creative aspect of it. I enjoyed the problem solving, the discovery, even the publication actually of that. And I felt actually saddened to have to stop my studies. And so I thought, well, gee, the next step is to do a PhD. And I looked up, well, what's the best sort of institution to do a PhD in mechanical engineering? It turned out at the time, which actually was still the case today, it was MIT. and I applied. I was lucky to get accepted, and then I came to Boston. This was in early 1999, actually, and it was love at first sight. I had done my undergraduate and my graduate studies at ETH in Switzerland, in Zurich. ETH is a Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. It's kind of like the MIT of Europe, actually. And so coming from that environment, it really felt like a breath of fresh air to be in the US. And I remember being elated and having this sense of freedom in that you could do anything. And I just loved it. And so 20 plus years later, I'm still here and still loving it, of course, as well.
Only an immigrant can be so excited about being in America 20 years later. But as an entrepreneur, a scientist who's speaking to over 50 million immigrants across the globe, how do you recognize an opportunity? And as an immigrant, how do you jump to that opportunity and actually become a force in your community, in your country that you've migrated into?
I think first of all, I think not every country is the same, right? I think if I were to immigrate in reverse from the US to France, it would be a very different setup almost. And I felt that the US really appealed to my values and to my sense of creating new things, creating new companies, and not having to be weighted down by kind of an older system and so on. And kind of, if you can dream it, you can make it. Kind of that philosophy, which is very naive actually, and not really real, but nonetheless, I think still people believe part of it is true, and I say I'm willing to believe it might be true, and I think are doing their best to make things happen, and I really like that actually. And so for me, it was really I identified with the can-do attitude. The fact that I went to MIT also really strengthened that, because the MIT system is a very democratic system. You're either good or you're not good. If you're not good, well, tough luck, or you got to work harder maybe.
That's captured.
And so it's very, very democratic, and so that to me, I think, was a macrocosm that kind of was very similar to the broader picture of the US, and it really appealed to me quite a bit, because you felt that maybe the older system was not stacked against you, and that merit, to some extent, mostly merit, would basically allow you to move forward. And I think as an engineer, it's very appealing actually as well, where you want to build something and be recognized for it as well, and not have to deal too much with the old crap, so to say.
Yes, bureaucracy, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, as a married man, entrepreneur, contributor in your community, from what I'm hearing you speaking, you're still very integrated with MIT, with all these things going on. Being a family man, taking care of your children. As an entrepreneur, how do you spread out your time and become productive with work and still be a father to your children?
Yeah, I think it's first of all, it's the right question to ask. I think it's a challenge, and I don't think anyone has solved it. I think every day is a new playing field, and you have to kind of manage that on a daily basis. I think first of all, it starts with your state of mind and your amount of energy. And I think probably the best advice I can give is have a good night's sleep if you can. Yeah. First of all, the night brings counsel, and then it basically solves your problems, so to say. It brings counsel and so on. And then also the night brings back energy. And I think if you have more energy, you can do more things. You can be more effective. And it's not helpful to your company, to your spouse, to your children, to your community if you're tired. First of all, you might be extremely boring. And second of all, you might be highly inefficient. I think first of all is manage yourself, manage your energy, and then from there you can manage your psychology, right? Your psyche, so to say. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's probably the number one thing you have to fight against. The whole world is a bit against you because you're trying to change things, and oftentimes things go well, but oftentimes they also don't go as well. and you have to be able to kind of manage a constant psyche for that. First of all, you need to make sure you don't get kind of over elated by the ups, and because in the startup world there's typically more downs than ups, you also have to make sure that those downs don't weigh you down. And I think it's primarily important for you because it's so easy to give up. It's so easy, to say, "Oh my God, this is not working." But then, you get a good night's sleep, you wake up, maybe you solved a few problems, and then the next day you look at things differently. And so that constant kind of psyche is, I think, very important. It's important for yourself. And then once you master that within yourself, you become more effective also in managing your team, right? Your team is looking at you, you're the leader, or you're a contributor, but people look up to you and they say, "Okay, gee, well, how is he feeling today? What's going on?" Right? I think they're trying to almost read the tea leaves and how you comport yourself, and maybe if you have a bad day and you're showing that, they think maybe the company is going to hell and so on. So I think you have to do that as well. So I think if you do those things, then everything else, it seems to me, should be easier to sort of solve.
Very interesting. As an immigrant and business person, one of the things that I've really struggled with is not feeling guilty about cheating my family, because I spend so many hours, so much time at work producing, and I know what I'm producing and what I'm doing, how it's affecting my community, how it's changing my community. I know the financial reward that I'm bringing home. Small disconnect where I feel like I'm not really connected to my son, and it used to feel that way 7-8 years ago with my daughter, who since moved home. I just felt like I was not connecting to her, and I was giving most of my time to my business and not to my family. Do you struggle with such guilt? And if so, when an entrepreneur is looking to transition from, say, an employer to start a business, or is looking to get into business, how do they psychologically work on balancing the two issues? And is there anything like work-life balance?
I don't think there is a work-life balance. I don't think that exists. And I think if you were balanced, it'd be boring. I mean, it'd be like, I think life is not a steady state. It has ups, it has downs, just de facto, right? I think it'd be very boring if it was the case. So, but I do think what you say is very important. It's easy to be consumed by work. And I think there's a great movie. We talked about movies. There's a great movie to look. It's going to be surprising you, but it's called Heat. It has Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, basically. One is a bank robber, the other one is a cop. They're both professional at what they do, probably the best. They both get completely consumed by their work. None of them is doing better than the other. In the end, they both lose. And I think, to me, that was a great metaphor on how, if you're not cautious, work never ends. At the end of the day, the work is still not complete. It never will be done, right? And so, once you accept that, you realize that if you're not careful, work will consume you and you will lose your family. And so, which, by the way, happens, more or less for both protagonists in that movie. And I think one way to overcome that is to make a conscious decision that family is also important, or maybe the most important, and probably your spouse will be number one on that list, and then your kids, and then work. I think that you have to have the dialogue with yourself, and once you come to that conclusion, then I think you should make time for that. And I think even a 15-minute undivided attention to a child, is worth a tremendous amount, where you don't have to spend a half a day to get to the same kind of spirit, right? The same kind of almost the same outcome that you're trying to get. And I think that's the conscious decision that you have to make. Just make a little bit of time for that. And some days maybe only 15 minutes that you can afford, but perhaps some other days it could be a whole day, or it could be a vacation, right? You spend a whole week with your family. But it's like seasons. There are times where the business requires 24/7. You have you have a presentation, or God forbid you have a crisis that you need to solve. There's no other choice. You have to do that. And I think the second thing in that context that you should also be mindful of is communication. I think your family, if you communicate well, will understand that, okay, well, this is crunch time now. And I think if you've made time in the past, they will also understand that this is just a season. It will end at some point, and you'll have more time. So I don't think the balance really exists, and it'd be boring if it did, honestly.
I agree with you. I think if I would summarize what you just said is be present. If you're at work and you're running your business, be present and serve those you're working with. And when you get home,
yes, that's fine.
Be present for your family, right? So what's the next big
100%.
thing that you're working on right now?
We're working on a lot of things, actually. We have a lot of things going on. We're preparing a study, a clinical study, first of all, this year, to really test the efficacy of the device with a drug. We're talking to the regulators, actually, as well. And along the lines, we're looking to do more deals with pharma companies. Our business model is actually not to sell the device to the end patients, mostly because the drug and the device are kind of matched with each other. And as such, if we can help the pharma companies basically enhancing their treatments with a better device, then on the business side, there is a way for us to actually capture some of that value back. And so our model has been to partner with pharmaceutical companies who have high-value drugs, such that we can actually do better injections for them. And as such, because those high-value drug, we can capture some of that value back actually as well. So yeah, quite a busy year for us. It's just early January right now, but it's going to be a very busy year for us, and I'm very excited about it.
Very good. So as an immigrant, you go to MIT. It's a very high intense, high moving energy. You focus really on getting to be successful at what you do. You have a lot of experience based on your prior education. Were you with your family? Were you separated with your family?
Yes, so I wasn't married. I was in my kind of mid-20s when I came here. I hadn't met my future wife yet, so it was just me, right? And in fact, to me, it was like, Jude, if you either going to make it or and you better make it, because there's no turning back. And so, yeah, I have a sister, and of course, my parents lived in France at the time. But already I was living for, I think, about 4 or 5 years already alone when I went to Switzerland to study and do my engineering degrees.
Right. So if you're speaking to an MIT class, or you're speaking to a young class full of immigrants that have migrated to the US, and you were trying to guide them on how to navigate your early years in the US, what would you say to them?
Oh, that's an interesting one, actually. I think first of all, if you're hesitating of doing it, I would say just go for it and come here. There's so many ways to do that. I think the easiest one is to come in as a student, as a grad student. I think coming at the undergrad level is more challenging because there's so much more competition, mostly because preference is given to US applicants versus international. But at a graduate student level, it's different, actually. I think there's much more of an even playing field. And then from there, through the visa system, there is a way to get to internships and then to get to your first job, and all the visa system actually works for that. So I did all of this, and I think I was on an F1 visa, then I went to get the practical training, then I got a few H1Bs, and I got a green card, and then we became US citizens a few years ago. So I kind of followed the model. I think that's probably the easiest. Now, of course, I was very fortunate. First of all, I came in already with a degree that might be possible for everyone. And then I had a financial support system from my family actually as well. And so I was maybe not in the same boat as everyone, but I think that to me worked really well. And so I would say the advice here is it's just first of all go for it, and then once you're here is try to as much to make connection and be inquisitive and learn what's different about this country and how you can contribute.
From what you said so far, I read there's a lot of collaboration to get to where you are. Can you speak about the importance of a young immigrant student collaborating within the immediate environment and also in the future workplace?
100%. I think that's a very great point. I think first of all, nothing's been built by single individuals. It's always teams that accomplish. And when you come to a new environment, and I think this is very natural. I think all of us pretty much do that intuitively. You have to rebuild your support system. And so maybe if you're more conscious of that, because I do think we do this intuitively, but if you're more conscious about it, then maybe you're going to build it faster. And as such, kind of have a sense of community that's actually growing. So for me, at the time, it really helped a lot. Again, this is very specific to my experience, but MIT had the MIT European Club. And so that was a great way to meet with other Europeans. And there was fun activities that we would do. We'd go skiing, we'd go to museums. There were, I forgot what the other associations there were. There were, of course, the Mechanical Engineering Student Association and so on. So I think try to make as many connections like that. The alumni groups from your undergrads, there probably is a chapter that's there where you can meet actually other people that are from, again, the same background as you. So there's multiple ways to build those communities, and it could be also maybe you take on a salsa dancing class. I mean, I'm simplifying here things as well. I think there's multiple things that you can do, but when you come in a new environment, you want to rebuild a support system, and as such, meeting as many people as you can. I think it's a great strategy to do that, and just to make sure you kind of find your place, so to say, and your people.
Very, very interesting. So, you have transitioned in careers. You've worked for certain large corporations, and eventually you've ended up where you are today. When you're looking to transition from one large corporation to another, what are you looking for to be able to make that decision to skip from one boat, so to say, to another?
Yeah, so for me, I actually only worked maybe like no more than 3 years at large corporations. So I wanted to start companies very early on, but I did think also that doing it right away out of school was a little bit daunting, because you don't know kind of what the end result kind of needs to look like. So I worked for a couple of years in finance, and then I also did an internship, a few internships actually at that last corporation actually as well. But very quickly, once I finished my studies, and after I had those experiences, I really wanted to start my own companies around new inventions, new discoveries. In some cases, there was a discovery or an invention that was created, and we needed to find a market. Or in the other cases, we looked for a market problem, and then looked for technologies to solve that problem actually as well. And so around those types of setup, basically, we created companies to address that.
Journeying through trying to discover who you are, and really, when we were researching you, what inspired us is watching how you've transitioned from science and nanotechnology, equity research. Then you went to innovative biotech companies. Was there anything that was driving you toward the multiplied industries, although it seems like they are related, or you were looking for nuggets to get experience so that you can thrive in a different environment?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter one. We're looking for nuggets to basically thrive in different environments. I mean, for me, it was more that one thing led to another. I mean, I didn't have a grand plan to start a company around needle-free injection. That was never a dream of mine. But I was always very open to opportunities and taking risk and in taking those opportunities, so to say. So, I mean, the way my kind of career happened is that I was interested, after I completed my research studies, my PhD, to actually understand the business world. And so the way I did this is by joining a Wall Street research firm and produce basically their analyst reports, commenting on and analyzing companies. And so that gave me a good sense of, well, how does the business world work? How are those companies managed? What do they do? How do they create successful products? And what does it look like financially? And from there, I really discovered that actually I really enjoyed the field of business. And so I decided to go and get even more studies and did an MBA for a couple of years. And after that, I felt I was equipped enough with experiences and knowledge to then start companies. But I didn't do it on my own. Actually, first of all, I partnered with a couple of guys that were extremely experienced, and together we started an autism diagnostics company. I was a junior guy on the team with a very experienced CEO that had been kind of the legend in medical diagnostics. And then his number two had also worked with him before and was quite accomplished actually as well. And then it's only after I'd done the next company that I actually kind of had my first CEO gig and kind of did it a bit more, took more of the leadership basically myself.
Talking about...
So you always, I think, as Steve said, you always connect the dots backwards, right? So I wouldn't have done what I did today if I didn't do what I did before. But you don't realize when you add it. You only realize it actually when you look back. That's my advice to folks. Just be open to opportunities and a bit of serendipity, because that's kind of how life works, anyways. Grand plans, maybe they work, maybe they don't. But I wouldn't be set on one way. I think there's multiple ways to get to where you want.
A true friend of mine and mentor says there is no day wasted, Martin. As long as you showed up and did not show up, it's not a wasted day, whether it was productive or not, because obviously you did take a few nuggets home, you learned something, you went through an experience, and that by itself is worth the brain. Looking at you again while we were researching you, we realized that there was certain things that were very unique to you. For example, what were some of the challenges you faced over time that bringing innovative medical technology to the market, and how did you overcome some of those things?
Yeah, I think it's it. I mean, if I looked at all the issues that we have from the technology not working, a study blowing up, commercial partners dropping us. And then on top of that, we had also a flood, actually once at our company. I mean, it's just amazing, all the stuff that can happen. And I think first of all, if you're the leader of the company, it's important to, again, keep an even psyche and say, look, I've been there before. Trust me, we're gonna find a way. Right? I think you have to be in a position where you can be mentally resourceful and you can say, look, we're gonna make it happen. I don't know how, but we're gonna make it happen. And that already is the first step towards problem solving. And I think that confidence is important, because from there, I think eventually, alone or with colleagues or with help, which is mostly the case, you will find a solution to the problems. You just don't know what it is yet, but you have to be open and admit that there must be a solution somewhere, and give it a fair try. So I think it's that. It's kind of this. You have to be ready and accept that there will be a solution, instead of focusing on the problem and say, there's no solution to that. And then once you decide that, then you commit to making it happen. I think it's inspiration and commitment. That's I think those are the two ingredients of success.
Of course. Over the years, Patrick, what are some of the key principles, per se, that have helped you as a leader be able to, one, build teams, and two, offer them perspective?
Yeah, for me, the thing that's very important with teams, and this is an important value that we have here at the company at Portal, which is really this idea of collegiality, right? We're all colleagues, and it's mutual respect. And it doesn't matter if you're the intern or if you're the senior person, every idea is equal. It matters. And I think voices need to be heard, point of views need to be heard. Everyone has got a different background, everyone's got a different set of experiences, and everyone looks at a problem in a different way. And you don't want to create a situation where you have a unique point of view or unique thought or unique thought process. I think you want to, and that you can only create through an environment that promotes collegiality, open discussion, respect. Of course, intellectual rigor is important in that. And so I think that's my number one advice there as well. It's and I think it's very important too, because we're spending so much time at work, right? And I always get saddened when I hear about abusive relationships in a work environment. I mean, in this day and age, this should not exist. There's no, first of all, in a startup, you don't have time for all that bullshit. I mean, honestly, and there's no time for that. You got other problems to deal with.
Yes.
And again, I think setting up the right environment is really, really important. And it really starts with the values. And what are the values that commonly as a group we want to aspire to? And we're going to measure against actually as well. And we're going to hire people as they join our company against those values actually too. That is super, super important. I think this is where it starts.
Let's jump onto a really common topic online, and this is a success metric. How do you measure success in a field that is as complex and rapidly evolving as bioengineering and medical device innovation?
I think, alas, the brutality here is that it's two things. Does it work, and do people like it? I think this is what it comes to. And without knowing if it works, you cannot be on the market. So you don't know if people like it or not. And I think, you can have, of course, clever marketing and overcome maybe some of the challenges that the product is not working as intended. But eventually, either a better product comes along or your product gets shut down because of bad reviews. And I think what's interesting to me is that nowadays that feedback loop is much, much faster than it used to be in the past. I mean, you cannot hide anymore. In particular with online commerce, people know if the thing works or not. So I think these are the challenges, and oftentimes, while you may, after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, solve the technical problems and actually make the product work, having the right product market fit, though, that's the more difficult part. And when you start a company, I started 3 companies. It took us 2 years to figure out the product market fit, and I think I'm not the only one that has experience. I think most of people don't get the product market fit right initially because you're not on the market, where you're just starting out. And I think you have to accept that actually as well, and kind of pivot actually along the way.
Yes, usually when you're studying an idea initially, I don't think it becomes the end product. Right, the idea evolves over time, and as a savvy businessman, you have to be able to recognize that loop and change with the idea, because at the end of the day, it's your end user that is depicting what it is that they want, that you can serve them, and they can be able to pay you for it. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and I think what you want to do, totally. What you want to do is generate. I think you want to talk to people. You want to generate data, market research. Iterate. From the feedback you get, then go back and ask more questions. You want to talk to as many people as you can, and run as many studies as you can to convince yourself that you've got the right product for the right market. That's my experience as well.
Do you have any regrets in business so far? If you do, what are they, and what's the price you've paid for them?
I don't like regrets, actually. I mean, to me, it's just a waste of time, honestly.
Right?
Because what you got to do, I mean, okay, maybe it's a lesson learned. Okay, I mean, I think what are the lessons learned here? I think if you can, again, it's easy to believe your own BS. Actually, I think that's unfortunately a typical cognitive bias that you have, and
that's a painful
having
one.
people on your team that can, it's painful, that can actually really tell you, no, this is wrong, and so on. And so I think that's one of them. I think iterating fast is always a good thing, because then you have more shots on goal. I think also that it's interesting. I mean, to me, one of the interesting learnings, we work with a lot of large pharma companies, which are very different from us. They're big companies, with a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of legal constraints. But as a small company, you're so desperate to make market inroad. And so you will actually try to sort of, make any wishes that comes from a customer to make it happen, and what that does is that it does influence your product development, and when that partner changes, then suddenly you've actually kind of it's hard to incrementally see it, but basically what happens is that that customer basically shapes your company's destiny in a way, or the company's product, and it's easy to forget that. And I think that's kind of one of the lessons learned here, is that you have to, even though you want to be the easiest company to work with and to be a great partner, you also have to stand up sometimes for what's right for your company. And my experience is that when we did that, even though we were very afraid to upset them, actually they respected that and they understood that. And so of course it has to be done in the right, with the right, sort of in the right way. But I was always surprised how actually you can stand up for what's right for your company, and people and your counterpart will actually respect that, and then you find a way to make it work. I think these are the few things that comes to mind. Yep.
Patrick, as a CEO, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, a lot of things keep me up at night. I think mostly, I think you have a lot of responsibility. You have a large teams. You have a from our senior people all the way down to the janitor. I mean, they all depend on us, on our company for their living, and so you want to make sure that you do right by them. And I think I said it's a lot of responsibility, and you always keep that in mind. But I think it never escapes you. And with startups, of course, you're always one deal away from catastrophe, or one funding event away from not making it. And so that's always the typical concern. Right? I don't think that that's too different from what others see as well. And I think how you manage fundraising is important. And it is a great sort of set of laws that were set up by Eugene Kleiner. Eugene Kleiner was the one of the first venture capitalists. He's a Kleiner from Kleiner Perkins, and perhaps as you and the viewers know, Kleiner Perkins is a legendary fund in Silicon Valley, in that they funded legendary companies like Google, Silicon Graphics, Amazon, and so on. And so Eugene Kleiner had a law which is called the law of appetizers, which is that really the time when the appetizers get eaten is when they get served. And so here really when the time is there's time to fundraise, and you want to basically just fundraise right away. And my favorite one is a corollary to that, which is that as the appetizers get served, if you can get 2 instead of 1, it's always better than just 1. So I think here you really always want to raise more than you need. Yes. I don't think anyone's been faulted for that. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you see emerging technologies shaping the future of healthcare and patient experience, especially with the fact that AI is accelerating so very quickly?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think if you look at the way medicines are administered, right, it's either pills or injectables, that's a very analog way to do those things, right? I mean, a pill is a physical thing. Some people have even trouble to swallow it, and then an injection is even worse. I mean, everyone hits needles. I haven't come across in my past almost decade leading portal as anyone say, yeah, I love injections. I do it every day, and it's a great thing. It's the best user experience. So I think the way we envisage therapies is that they need to be part of the continuum of our lives, right? And in particular for chronic diseases, you want not only to administer the treatment in a way that fits in the life of patients. So what does it mean? Well, first of all, it needs to be not dangerous, right? When you have a needle and syringe, that's dangerous. If you leave it unattended, maybe someone can hurt themselves with it. Maybe your kid starts to eat it. I mean, like some crazy things can actually happen. So we need to solve that. So get rid of the needle. Number 2, it needs to be connected, right? Because you want to create various feedback loops where you know what you're doing, you know that you're doing it right, you know why you're doing it, you get education as to what that medicine does. You want to make sure you're doing the right, following the treatment in the right way. And then you want the physician then to be involved, so he or she can also be involved in the whole care team. You don't want to waste time with your refills that should come automatically, like Amazon Prime, and it should be. So we're so far away from that. It's unbelievable. But on the other hand, as an entrepreneur, it screams opportunity to me, and I think we're going to solve that. I mean, we and others, of course, are going to solve that. But to me, this is the last frontier of analog, and we need to solve that.
Great. I'm glad you went there. So if I am an entrepreneur, I have a great business idea, I'm trying to figure out ways to get it into the market. Who do we talk to? How do I protect my idea? And how do we approach the marketplace?
That's great. So I think first of all, it's hard to raise money if your idea is not an important idea.
Right.
So what's an important idea? It's an idea that solves an important problem. And so first of all, it's an important problem. How do you judge an important problem? Well, it has maybe a large addressable market down the road. So huge opportunity, number one. Number two, can you protect it? Right. So can you protect it? Meaning that do you have intellectual property? Do you have patents? Do you have a special process? Do you have a special distribution channel? And number three, does it really solve that problem? So in other words, does it really have a high value proposition that people actually want to pay money for that? So I think these are the three ingredients, right? So big market, defensible IP, and then great value prop.
Big market is what our friend Warren Buffett calls a moat, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Big market will always be helpful from fundraising to then as you're trying to grow the company.
Excellent. So you're from France, you come to the US, you see the opportunity, you get yourself educated, you jump on the opportunity. How have you avoided failure?
I think the best way to avoid failure is to, and this is hard actually, I don't think I get it right all the time, but I think it's to imagine what's really the downside and actually really realizing and fully understanding actually what the downside is. Because once you understand that, you can either prepare for it, meaning that you have a plan B, or you can try all your best to avoid it actually as well. And I think when we had failures, we misunderstood what the downside was. In fact, in some cases, we even had the hubris not to even realize that there was a downside. And so I think that's how you avoid failure at the end of the day, was recognizing all the things bad that can happen and then protecting against that, or having a plan B to address it if it were to happen. Because sometimes sometimes you could be in a situation where it's maybe unavoidable, or there's a high probability that the failure will happen. But what do you do next? What I think is what's important.
When you're talking to young entrepreneurs, you are speaking with a young scientist who are looking to get into the landscape of business, biotech and health sectors. What strategies do you employ to navigate the complex, and how would you help them to be able to understand what the landscape of your industry looks like?
Yeah, so this I learned from my mentor. So his name is Stan Lapidus. Again, Stan was the legend in diagnostics. He's just one of a kind. Started multiple medical diagnostics company. I think number one, you have to become the expert in what you do. And what's amazing nowadays is with the internet. I mean, every information is available actually, or easily available. So I think you have to become the expert. Once you're the expert, you can, in particular in the medical field or scientific field, you can talk to so-called key opinion leaders, kind of the movers and shakers of your field. You can establish a dialogue, and how do you do that? Well, you read all their papers. Really become conversant in what they've done, and so they will basically allow you to hone in your understanding of the field, and then from there you can start to recruit your team, and then from there you can start to basically talk to investors. Investors primarily invest in the jockey. If the analogy is the horse and the jockey, the horse is the company, the jockey is the guy or the gal who's kind of directing the horse. So I think investors would rather invest in a great team than in a great product if they had the choice of the two. I mean, preferably it's great if you do both, of course, but I think they'd rather invest in a great team in a lesser product than the opposite. And so once you are conversant in what kind of you want to deepen yourself in, then really it becomes easier to attract the right people and so on. And that's just not in a field also, right? I mean, if you're the key guy for this new idea that you're developing, you will also attract also other people that will help you build a company, like a great CFO, a great person from that does marketing, and so on. So that would be my advice there.
Patrick, I want to be respectful of your time. So if somebody was listening to these conversations, they've stolen thousands of nuggets from what you've talked about, how can they reach out to you on social media?
I think reach out to me easily on LinkedIn. You can just send me a note, link up with me. The best way to actually do this is tell me why you want to connect, in the LinkedIn invite, and I mean I look at all of them and typically respond actually quite rapidly. But yeah, happy to continue the conversations with anyone. I think I admire, I mean, myself being an immigrant, admire people who want to jump into this adventure, because it truly is an adventure. You're almost burning the boats as you come here, certainly in a short term. And you have no choice. You got to make it, right? You got to make it, because it would be too painful to go back. And I think this is what gives us the drive, and we need more people like that. Actually, I think this is how the US in particular, I know, was built, but other countries too. And those stories need to be told, because it's not. I don't think the US should have the only monopoly on immigration. I think other countries should get inspired by that, because I think it's the only way to create great countries.
Excellent. Patrick, I'm going to ask you a question, and forgive me if it's ignorant, because we did not really delve into your website to see what is going on there. However, I'm going to issue a challenge, right?
Okay,
I'm
sure.
fascinated by the idea of an injection that does not have to go through my skin with lots of pain and all that good stuff. But I have found myself, and looking at my kids, many times going to labs to draw blood than getting medication administered through an injection. And so here's my challenge, sir. While you're doing what you do on a daily basis, can you start looking at ways to draw blood without using an injection?
So we could do it theoretically. You could actually run the device in reverse. But there are other companies actually doing that. They're not standard yet, but there are companies literally using suction. It basically sucks up, it's a big suction cup. It sucks up some of the interstitial fluid, with which you can actually do some form of diagnosis actually as well. So it's going to come. It's not going to come from us. I mean, we could do it theoretically, but we got other problems to solve actually that are more sort of urgent, I would say. But other companies actually are working on that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe like in a 3 to 5 years time, if this was starting to make more inroads. It's available, but it's not widely known actually yet. But it's a great. I agree with you. It would be a great pain point to solve.
Yeah, the future is very interesting, especially in the medical world. I have one last one. So
sure.
COVID came, and I'm not gonna say COVID went away. COVID came, and we are where we are today, right? The products that you're developing at your company, how would they have helped solve the issue we had for mass production of injections, where we had to go and make huge lines just to get a shot, right? Eventually we did get in, doses where you could mail in whatever, but is there a possibility that in the future we could use your devices to help the world in that context?
Yeah, so I think there's multiple ways we could have helped. So first of all, our device was not really ready at the time, so but we could have helped basically. First of all, for people who wanted to be vaccinated, our device does an injection in under a second, and as such, and it can be used in one version. It can be used across multiple patients, and so we could have actually increased the cycle time to do those injections. There's an extreme version you can imagine, which again, this would be in like an emergency situation where you could actually line up everyone like this, and literally with a car come in and just do an injection like this, like maybe 2 seconds per injection, roughly, just not for the whole injection but for the whole process. So there's a lot of people who could actually vaccinate versus, I think it was at CVS, which is where I got my COVID shot. I think they could do 4 injections per hour. right? So imagine 4 injections per hour versus an injection every 2 seconds. So I think we could have helped there. The other part we could have helped is with patients who were skeptical about the vaccine, and we measured that. We measured that out of your typical 30% of people who were refusing the vaccine, that half of those roughly would have done it if there was an ill-free option, right? So you could have really increased also. I think the other thing, you want to make sure that you've got this herd immunity that you build. So we could have increased basically the reach of the vaccine. So again, not that I wish another pandemic, because this was, I think, very challenging times for a lot of people, including us. But I think this technology will help with the next pandemic.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick from Portal Instruments. Patrick, we appreciate your help. We appreciate your time. We are really, really glad you made time for us. We want to wish you the very best of time. Is it okay the next time we're in Boston, we can touch base and maybe have another conversation?
Absolutely, Martin. Let's have a coffee when you come. Thank you so much for inviting us. Great conversation. Love your questions. And again, I think it's a great community that you've built, and happy to help. And again, if anyone wants to reach out to me, love to continue the conversation.
Tell us one more time how we can reach you on social media, please.
So yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Patrick Anquetil on LinkedIn, and then just send me an invite request, and kind of with a note as to how I can help, and I will connect with you.
Patrick, it was a pleasure.
Likewise, Martin. Take care.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.